We kind of went over it a little bit yesterday, but I thought I'd do a little bit more detail here because it is important. I want everybody to understand that watches this, because we put a lot of work lining these holes out for you to use in the field. And even pro erectors, they'll see it in the drawings and not know what it is, because there's not really anybody else that I'm aware of that does it. Because this bay here and the next bay are both braced, and it's tiered bracing, means that we have an X brace here, and then we have another X brace on the top, and we're using the center girt as a strut. We're gonna have an X brace come from one of these holes, and then on the other side, we're gonna have to move over a set of holes. So the X brace that's gonna run down there is gonna land in this hole, and the X brace that's gonna run down here is gonna land in this hole. That's pretty unique. The reason this is happening is just because this is such a high load building, 250 pounds per square foot snow load, roof load. It just requires a lot of bracing. A lot of times on a sidewall, we'd wind up putting a portal frame here. This 1-inch rod really worked out better. It was stronger, better than doing 2 portal frames. And because the building's never gonna have any access from this side, there's no reason not to have X brace. In most buildings, you're only gonna have a single bay of X brace. And so instead of 2 holes, you'll just have one in the center, right? And that lines up to the center of the girt line. So if you have 10-inch girts, it's gonna be 5-inch offset. On 8-inch girts like we have here, it would normally be a 4-inch offset, but here we're going 2 and 6 because we got to line those up. So on the drawings, this wall is frame line A, or the front side wall. I'm intentionally lining everything out from this direction with my flanges towed down, just so I can to keep my bearings right. I don't want to flip around and have to think in 180 degrees. It really doesn't matter, because no matter which way I do these, we just have to spin the girt, but just so we don't have to spin it around once it's up in the air, I'm just making sure it's right. I'm going to start in this bay here, bay 3, and I'm starting on the low girt, these are all G10s. There is a circle here for us with a 7. And that circle calls out in the Fieldwork table, line number 7, shows me that the first slot is 2 foot 1 7/16 from the end of the girt, and the next one from the same end measuring over is 8 foot 10 7/16. Normally, and you'd want to check this in the field, it's going to be the same from both ends, but we do lay it out left to right. So you can come back in, check, which I did there, and I have 2 foot 1 7/16 from both edges, and this one is also lining up at 8 foot 10 7/16. So what I've done, because those holes are offset, I'm going to slot this hole on the inside of the girt, or the outside of the girt, and this slot is going to be on the outside of the girt, or the inside, I'm sorry, inside and outside. All I'm using is just an angle grinder. I recommend you put your guards on. I don't have my guard on, and I definitely use heavier duty gloves, but we're going to cut this. That way when we place it, we'll be able to thread the rods straight through. And because it's tiered, we're going to stop here. We're going to thread these rods once the girts are in place, and then we'll install the upper girts so that we can bring the rods in without the lower girts interfering. Then I'll move down to this bay here, do the same thing. The whole roof is braced with a series of cables, but those go in basically the same way. With the measurements, you can use a hole saw. This steel is pretty tough. So sometimes you might use them up, but a cutoff wheel is fine. In the back of the plans, there is a detail on how to lay this out and what we're doing here. Because of the size, 1 inch wide and 3 inches long is the max. Here I'm going a little bit bigger than that because we have so many girts. But a 1 inch wide slot, the rod would really be tight in there. We want a little bit of wiggle room. So the roof is bypassed, meaning the purlin actually rides on top of the rafter. And normally on girts, or at least on sidewall girts, that's also going to be bypassed. Here, because we have a flush condition, we have to cut that. But up on the roof, we don't have to do any of this slotting because the cable braces actually run below the girt line. Having this work done here makes cutting these holes down on the ground easier. You're going to get a better cut. You're not working off a ladder or working up in the air. and you're not having to string line to figure out where you want to put your holes. So like I said, it makes it a lot easier, and I hope everybody uses this, and I hope that the work that we put in is taken advantage of in the field. So all right, I'm going to get to cutting these. Thanks.